You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today is September 9th, 2021. It is the NFL's 2021 season opener. We've been waiting for it for months now is what it seems, what it feels, and what it has been. I am excited. I'm sure anyone who's watching this video is excited right now. I am excited to discuss a few key points that I have to look forward to going through this game with you guys. So without further ado, as always, if you enjoy what we're doing here, make sure you like, share the podcast, subscribe, whatever it may be. Comment down below, discuss what you think is going to be important for this game, who you think is going to win, who you think is not going to win. I'm going to have a little bit of a prediction at the end. We'll go over a couple of big, bold predictions I have as well, more towards the end of the video. But with all of that said, let's get into the discussion, shall we? So, Week 1 kicks off. This video will be strictly the season opener. I'm going to have a video up on Sunday, probably sometime around like an hour or two, maybe 3, but I don't know really when I'm going to upload it, but at some point Sunday prior to the games coming up and live. This focuses strictly on the game to my left here, the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, defending Super Bowl champions going up against what is an offense that shows a lot of promise and a defense that really held the team back and honestly probably would have held the team back regardless of whether Prescott was there or not last year. So there's a lot to look forward to in this game, a lot we're going to learn, and I've narrowed down a few key points of things I want to keep an eye on. I'll discuss with you guys today, and the first thing that I have listed on here is kind of a little bit of a matchup, positional matchup, if you will, of the Dallas Cowboys wide receivers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive backs. So, Dallas wide receivers, if you don't know who they are a pretty elite group of players here. You have Amari Cooper, who is arguably one of the best in the league at what he does. You have the young, up-and-coming CeeDee Lamb, who he had such a strong year, and he didn't even have Dak Prescott throwing to him. He had somebody like Ben DiNucci throwing to him for one game. So, I mean, CeeDee Lamb has so much potential, and with somebody like Dak Prescott throwing him the football, I mean, his ceiling is to the moon with just the athletic freak that he is. And then please do not forget, because I made sure I didn't, is wide receiver Michael Gallup, another guy who I think when you're labeling these guys, obviously Amari Cooper is number 1, but then like number 2 and 3, Lamb and Gallup are interchangeable. Gallup can be a very strong number 2, and so can Lamb, and whoever isn't the number 2, I would take either of those guys as a number 3 wide receiver because the talent on both of those players is just there. So much to like about this wide receiver group. But then on the other side of the football field, when we're looking at what Tampa Bay's fielding, the pretty strong secondary, one that I would say came on strong more towards the later half of the year, especially when the defense got back some really strong returning players from injury. It really just helped this defensive backfield thrive. You're looking at guys like Sean Murphy, Bunting, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, then Antoine Winfield Jr., and for those of you who did not know, they will be missing Jordan Whitehead. He's going to be out for the game. That's been confirmed. But regardless of him being out, still 4 really great guys that are going to be in those starting roles. And I mean, there's so much to like about this matchup because you're looking at, there's so much like young and up and coming potential within this whole thing. I think the Tampa Bay secondary really started to establish themselves at the end of last season, especially going through that playoff run. And then when you think about just like the things that Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb were able to do without having Dak Prescott throwing them the football for, 11 weeks? I mean, the numbers they were able to put up with Prescott there were unbelievable. He led the league in passing yards, I think, for 2 weeks after he got injured. So, I mean, there is so much chemistry there, so much to like. I'm very curious to see how these two positional groups match up. Are the corners going to be able to lock up these receivers? And will Tampa Bay be able to mitigate the loss of Jordan Whitehead? Is that something that's going to really affect their secondary there? I mean, you never want to take away from a starter being taken out of a game because, granted, all the players are in the NFL for a reason. There's a lot of people that aren't. There's a strong reason for why anyone's in the league, even if it is just a backup. But at the end of the day, do they have the depth at the safety position to really cover the loss of Jordan Whitehead? That's something we'll have to really take a look at as the game goes on and see where if any big plays are happening. Is it in the area of where Whitehead should have been had he been playing in this game? But if I was to give I guess my prediction on who wins out on this one here, I am going to give the slight edge to the Tampa Bay DBs, and that's just because from what I'm expecting from this defense, I think it's only going to help this defensive back group flourish even more. And this, I'll get into this a little bit more afterwards in the podcast here. But they came on strong so late last year, going up against some of the best wide receiver talent in the league, and were able to at least mitigate what they can do, maybe not necessarily shut players down, but they were able to keep some of those top receivers they were going up against at bay, which is good. It shows promise. And you have the entire squad pretty much healthy minus Whitehead. There's a lot to be excited about. So I'm going to give a slight edge to the DBs. But if Dak Prescott can get hot early, that secondary is going to be in trouble. That defense is going to be in trouble because there is so much talent in that wide receiving core for Dallas. I do not want to count them out, but I am going to give the slight edge over to the Buccaneers there. Now, the second thing that I'm focusing on as we go into this game is basically just Dak Prescott. And I think everyone's pretty much discussed this at this point, but I can't just leave it out for that sake. I think probably the biggest question I have is how much does he actually trust his leg? I think when it comes to leg injuries, it's a little bit more trickier than anything else because your legs literally carry your entire body from head to toe, as opposed to something like, a shoulder injury, an elbow injury, anything that's from the hips up. Yeah, no injury is anything to scoff at or anything like that. But when it comes to leg injuries, this is literally what is carrying your entire person from day to day and everything that you do. I think leg injuries can take a little bit more to really try to get back to feeling normal per se. So that's really something I'm going to keep an eye on. Does he look like he's his mobility is being limited? Does he look awkward in the pocket or in any of his motions? We really did not get to see him at all through preseason and training camp. So a lot of question marks for Dak and just how is he going to look after coming off of such a and on top of that, when you talk leg injuries, if you think ACLs, Achilles, he completely destroyed ankle. So a lot to come back from and just feel normal after. It remains to be seen how he looks, but that is something I'm keeping an eye on. On top of that, his shoulder is something of a concern. Obviously, he missed some time because of that. Is his shoulder really 100%? Are they just keeping it under wraps? Is he actually only 90%, but they're, playing it off like he's 100%? Is he still feeling maybe a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort? Is his throwing motion going to look off? Are his passes going to be off? There's a lot to look at in terms of injury when it comes to Dak Prescott. And then I guess the biggest question is really, are we going to see the Dak Prescott that put up, 1,600 yards before he went down in week 5 with that injury? Or are we going to see maybe a Dak Prescott who hasn't been as successful the years prior? I'm really hoping that he comes back and lights it up. After coming off of such a nasty injury, whether you love him or hate him, I think it would be kind of cold to just want to see him outright fail. I want to see him be successful coming off of something like this. He has the talent around him with the wide receivers that we just talked about. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott, it seems like he's a little bit more rejuvenated and ready to roll this season after having, I don't want to say a down year, but not quite the year that the Cowboys were expecting from him last season, or even just the last couple of years. Not quite where, with all the money they're giving him, they would expect him to be. But Dak Prescott, we're keeping an eye on him. That'll be a big point to watch as we go through the game. Now, a lot of that Dak Prescott conversation is going to boil down to my next topic, which has to be the Cowboys offensive line. Pro Bowl guard Zach Martin, he's out of the game because of COVID. A huge blow. The Cowboys are hanging on to a very slim chance of him playing, but I just do not see that happening. I just don't think that there's really any way for it to really work out in their favor. I am recording this the night prior to the game, so when this goes live, it's pre-recorded. I want to say at about 24 hours or so in advance. I think the game's at 8:20, and it's 8:06 right now as I'm recording the day before. So something might change between then and now, but it really looks like he's not going to be playing, and that would really make sense to me. But, with him being out, Who's going to step up to the plate? Is it going to be McGovern? Is he going to be able to hold down the fort? I know that there was some trade interest for him, and you have to assume that, having somebody that, other teams were calling about, it makes you feel comfortable with Zach Martin being out. It's obviously a huge blow for this offensive line, and I think it may affect how this game turns out for Dallas. I think, we all witnessed what happens when you're missing important pieces on your offensive line in the Super Bowl last year against this Tampa Bay defense specifically. So tough. And I guess a secondary question that comes off of that is, and it's kind of split into two, is how well are they going to be able to, protect Dak Prescott, one, but are they going to be able to open up the lanes for Ezekiel Elliott to be successful without Zach Martin there? So a couple of things we're really going to have to keep an eye on, and, this is definitely going to affect things. And again, especially, I cannot stress it enough, against this defense. We saw what happened when an injured offensive line went up against this defense the last NFL game that was played. This defense ate up the Chiefs, who had issues on the offensive line going into this game. Granted, I would say a little bit more, but injuries nonetheless. So we'll have to keep a look on that Cowboys offensive line and see how they fare against this massive front seven and just pass rush overall that we are going to see from Tampa Bay, which kind of just rolls right into my next subject, is how well is this group going to be against this offensive line? Tampa Bay's defense, especially their front seven, man, really kicked it into high gear last year. And when Vita Vea came back, it was like a whole new unit. And even some of the players were saying that. I mean, they just looked hungry. They were getting after everyone, going after the quarterback, wreaking havoc in the pocket, producing all kinds of pressure. This is a group that, has, Jason Pierre-Paul, who has been in the league for, I can't even believe how long now. It feels like I remember him coming in and storming into the league as a rookie. But, I mean, JPP's been like a 10-year vet at this point, still playing at such a high level. William Golston, Adama Kinsu. I mean, talk about a massive just like defensive line there on its own. Then, your linebackers, of course, Barrett can get after the quarterback. White can get after the quarterback. David can get after the quarterback. You have such a strong group of defensive linemen and linebackers here. This is why I'm really concerned about Zach Martin being out in this game, and why when you see my prediction that I have a little bit later for the final score, you'll see what it is. But man, if this Bucs pass rush gets rolling, and I mean rolling like they did against the Chiefs, this is going to be a long night for Dallas, because I don't care how good Dak Prescott looks on the other side of the field, he is going to need to be Hercules himself to be able to carry this team if that offensive line cannot keep him protected and they cannot get the running game rolling early. So that's probably two things that, like, combined, how is the Cowboys offensive line going to handle this, just, I guess, front seven, not even pass rush, just front seven as a whole in both facets of the game, be it run defense or pass rush. I mean, it's definitely going to be something you really need to keep an eye on when things are getting out of it, or excuse me, not when, but if things are getting out of hand and the game really starts to tilt into Tampa Bay's favor. If that's what's going on here, we really got to take a look at the offensive line and defensive line play going on there, because I think that's going to be a key factor. And then my last piece of discussion, the big focal point a lot of people are talking about, how is Tom Brady going to look going into this game? He literally just stated the other day that, he still feels like he throws like he's 24 years old. So, I mean, the guy's 44. He's speaking like he's 24. He says he feels like he's 24, and he thinks he plays like he's 24. I mean, is he going to be able to start out as hot as he was finishing off the season last year? I'm going to go with probably yes. This offense looked really good going through the preseason. And again, it is just preseason, but just the efficiency, the way they were moving the ball, and the way Brady was getting on his team when they weren't getting things done the way they were supposed to. You could see Brady was fired up. He was ready to go. This is not the Brady that's stepping into a new team for the first time in his entire NFL career, minus when he played, for the Patriots 20 some odd years ago. But we're getting a Brady that feels comfortable and is ready to really, rein in this team after having an entire training camp, an entire season to run through this system. I expect them to just hit the ground running. And I mean, if they look even as good as they did to finish off last season, it's going to be a long year for the teams going up against them, because, after week 12 of last season, they lost that game to the Chiefs and never looked back. They went undefeated the rest of the year. So let's see if they can get the ball rolling on that. I think Tom Brady should come out, look sharp. He's been doing this for so long now. And I think last year to start the season was just kind of, there was so much going on in terms of just the global situation and, the training camp situation, the preseason situation that the NFL had last year that affected the start. And we didn't really get to find out what teams are made of until about that midway point, and that was when this Tampa Bay team really came on, and that's when Tom Brady also started to really start to look good and comfortable in this offense. Now, those are my 5 key points that I have in mind for the game. To wrap things up, I have a few predictions for you guys. Firstly, I will go ahead and give you my score prediction for the game, and I'll give you a little bit of insight as to why. It's going to pop up on the left of me right here now. I have Dallas sitting at 17 and Tampa Bay with 28, so obviously the Bucs take the home opener. And part of the reason being, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is because of just that Cowboys offensive line. Losing Zach Martin is going to hurt. He is such an integral piece to this unit, and you cannot stress enough how important each and every offensive lineman is. I am a Colts fan for anyone who has not seen this podcast before, is maybe a newer listener and has not heard me say this. So I know what it's like when offensive linemen are either not playing to their potential, they are just not suitable for playing in the league. They shouldn't be a starter, or what happens when you have great players and they end up missing some time. I get it. And that's why when I see something like this go down where they're going to be missing an all-pro, Pro Bowl guy like Zach Martin, I mean, it's going to hurt this offense, and I expect it to. That's why I have Tampa Bay winning by about, a couple of scores at least. I think it might hurt the Cowboys' production a little bit there. I think, I expect the offense in Tampa Bay to be rolling and humming, and I think that this defense, I don't want to say is going to have their way with Dallas, because I think Dallas will still be able to get a few scores in here. That's why I have them marked for a couple of touchdowns and a field goal, but I think that overall, it's just, Dak Prescott's going to have to knock off some rust. Everyone's going to have to find kind of a groove that it feels like Tampa Bay already has offensively. The defense is still, we have a lot of questions about how this defense is going to perform. I think the Cowboys are going to start a little bit slower this season and then really start to pick up as the season goes on, because you have so much young talent playing on the defensive side of the football. And hopefully that this whole, COVID thing does not bother Zach Martin beyond just week 1, because we've seen what happens to players. They kind of lose some steam for a while and they don't end up being the same. So hopefully that does not end up being the case, because the last thing you need to be losing is offensive linemen at any position at any point in the season, period. Now, before we wrap up the podcast, I do have 2 bold predictions I want to make here. And the Lamb one kind of goes against the score here, but I think that Lamb is going to have a really strong day. I'm going to go ahead and pin him for 140 total yards receiving. So I think a little bit of a bold shot there. He has Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, I'm sure, is going to be ready to sling the ball. He wants to be out there. This is one of those things where it's this will be like the high point of the offense. I think Lamb he's an athletic freak. He's going to be a dominant receiver. If some of you don't think he's already well on his way, I'd say you're nuts. This is a guy that's going to be around the league for a while, and I think he's going to be making some big plays over there in Dallas. My bold prediction for the Bucs, like I was saying, I think this Tampa Bay offense is going to be rolling. I expect Tom Brady to put up a fat 3 touchdowns, maybe even 4 of the 28 points I have them predicted for here. So those are my bold predictions. That is my game prediction as well. Bucs 28, Cowboys 17. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Why do you think I'm right? Why do you think I'm wrong? And everything in between. I'm Ethan Hristodoulou. I'll catch you guys Sunday with a week 1 preview for all the games slated on Sunday. But other than that, that's all I got. Have a good rest of your night. Enjoy the season opener. I know I will be. I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. We'll see you Sunday.